She was trapped on this fence, barely alive. Then a Hell's Angel learned his own family did it. The wind whipped across the backcountry road, carrying the smell of dry grass and old dust. Jack Rusty Malone gripped the handlebars of his Harley and let the engine's rumble settle into his bones. It was a good sound, a familiar sound, the kind of sound that didn't ask questions or demand answers. Dusk painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. The sun was low, sliding behind the hills like it was tired of the day. Rusty's gray-flecked beard caught the last light, and he squinted against the glare. His knee throbbed, a dull ache that never really went away. An old reminder from a bar fight 20 years ago. A punch thrown in anger. A knee twisted wrong. He had the scar to prove it, and the memory to match. He thought about his cabin, the empty porch, the cold coffee pot, the quiet that settled over everything like a heavy blanket. It wasn't a sad quiet. Not exactly. It was just quiet. He had gotten used to it. A man his age, with his history, learns to make peace with silence. He had a roof. He had food. He had his bike. It was enough. Or at least, that's what he told himself. Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today. Now back to the story. The road curved ahead, lined by fences that had seen better days. Old barbed wire stretched between crooked posts, rusty and sagging. The pasture beyond was abandoned, overgrown with weeds and wildflowers that nodded in the breeze. Rusty slowed a little, not because he needed to, but because the evening felt like it deserved a slower pace. That's when he saw it. A flash of pale skin. A flutter of torn fabric. Something white and small caught in the wire, flapping like a wounded bird. Rusty's heart slammed against his ribs. He knew that kind of pale. That kind of still. It wasn't a piece of trash or a lost shirt. It was a person. He killed the engine, and the silence rushed in, loud and awful. He dropped the kickstand and swung off the bike, his knee protesting with a sharp stab of pain. He ignored it. He limped forward, then broke into a run, his boots pounding the hard earth. The girl was tangled in the barbed wire like a rabbit caught in a trap. Her arms were stretched out, caught on the barbs, her hands raw and bloody from trying to pull free. Her clothes were torn. Her legs were scraped and bleeding. One of her shoes was gone. Her hair was matted with dirt and sweat. She hung there, barely moving, her head lolling to the side. Rusty dropped to his knees beside her. He didn't care about the mud. He didn't care about the wire. He reached for her face, his big, calloused hand trembling as he touched her cheek. Her skin was cold. Too cold. "Hey," he said, his voice rough and shaky. "Hey, kid, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered. She tried to focus on him, but her eyes were glassy and far away. Her lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then a whisper, thin as a thread. Water. Rusty's throat closed up. He pulled his pocket knife from his belt and started cutting the wire, working fast and careful. He talked to her as he worked, his voice low and steady. "I got you. You hear me? I got you. Just hang on." The barbs had bit deep into her skin. He cut the strands nearest her arms first, then the ones around her legs. He was gentle, so gentle, even as his hands shook. When the last piece of wire fell away, she sagged forward, and Rusty caught her. She was light. Too light. He cradled her against his chest, holding her like she was made of glass. Her head rested against his vest, and he could feel her shallow breath, a tiny pulse of life against his ribs. "It's okay," he whispered, even though his own heart was pounding so hard he could barely hear himself. "I got you. I'm not letting go." He didn't know her name. He didn't know where she came from. But in that moment, none of it mattered. She was a kid. She was hurt. And she was in his arms. Rusty looked up at the darkening sky and made a promise, right there in the dirt and the blood. "No one hurts a kid on my watch. Not while I'm still breathing." Then he lifted her, cradled her close, and carried her to his bike. Rusty knelt in the dirt, his hands shaking as he examined the girl. The world around him went soft and blurry. All he could see was her face, pale as moonlight, and the dark stain spreading across the ground beneath her. Her shirt was ripped at the shoulder. Blood soaked the soil, turning it to mud. She was unconscious. Still, too still. "Hey, kid, stay with me," he whispered. His voice cracked on the last word. Her chest rose. A tiny breath. That was enough. He reached into his belt and pulled out his pocket knife. The blade was old, but sharp. He had used it 1,000 times for 1,000 small jobs. Cutting rope, whittling wood, opening cans, but never this, never something this delicate. "Okay," he said to himself. "Okay, study." He leaned over her, blocking the wind with his broad shoulders. The barbed wire was twisted around her leg and her torso. The metal barbs had sunk deep into her skin. Every move she must have made, every struggle, only made it worse. Rusty's jaw tightened. He wanted to rip the fence apart with his bare hands. He wanted to find whoever did this and make them pay. But right now, that didn't matter. Right now, the only thing that mattered was getting her free. He slipped the knife under the first strand of wire, careful not to touch her skin. He pressed down. The wire snapped with a sharp twang. He moved to the next strand. And the next. His hands were big and rough, not made for this kind of work. But he was gentle, so gentle. He talked to her the whole time, his voice low and soft, the way you talk to a scared animal. "Almost there, kid. You're doing good. Just keep breathing. That's all you gotta do." The wire around her torso was the worst. It had wrapped around her ribs like a snake. Rusty could see where the barbs had torn through the fabric of her shirt and into her skin. He took a breath. He slid the knife between the wire and her body, then twisted carefully. The wire gave way. He caught it in his hand so it didn't spring back and cut her again. Another strand around her leg. He cut it. Then the last one, tangled near her ankle. The knife slipped once, and Rusty's heart nearly stopped. But the blade only touched the dirt. He steadied his hand and tried again. Snap. The wire fell loose. The girl's body went limp, no longer held up by the fence. She started to slump forward, and Rusty caught her, pulling her into his arms. She was so light. He could feel every rib through her torn shirt. He could feel her heart beating, weak, but there. He cradled her like a fragile bird, his leather vest pressing against her. The worn leather, covered with patches and years of memories, now soaked in her blood. He didn't care. He held her close, feeling her shallow breath against his chest. "I got you," he said. His voice was thick. "I got you now." She didn't open her eyes, but her fingers twitched against his arm, like she heard him, like she knew. Rusty looked around. The pasture was empty. The road was empty. No cars. No houses. No help anywhere. He had to move. He pushed himself up, using one arm to keep her cradled against him. His knee screamed in protest, but he bit through the pain. He limped toward his Harley, each step careful and slow. He couldn't risk falling, not with her in his arms. When he reached the bike, he stood there for a moment, thinking he couldn't ride with her upright. She was too weak. She'd slide right off. So he laid her across his lap, her body resting along the length of the seat, her head cradled in the crook of his arm. Her legs dangled over the side, but he held her tight. He swung his leg over the bike and settled in, the engine humming beneath them. He reached down and pressed her hand to his chest, right over his heart. "Stay with me, kid," he said again. "You hear me? Stay." He kicked the bike into gear. The engine roared to life, loud and furious, cutting through the quiet evening. Rusty twisted the throttle and tore down the road, heading for the clinic. His eyes stayed on the road ahead, but his arm never left the girl. He held her close, a broken bird in the arms of a man who had spent his whole life running from the very thing he was now racing toward. Hope. The road blurred beneath Rusty's wheels. The girl's head lolled against his arm, her lips pale and cracked. The engine roared, but it didn't seem fast enough. Every second felt like an hour. Every bump in the road made his heart clench. "Come on," he muttered through gritted teeth. "Come on, come on." The rural clinic sat at the edge of town, a small white building with a single light burning over the front door. In the darkness, that light looked like a lighthouse. Rusty aimed for it like a man who had been lost at sea. He took the turn too fast. The back wheel slid on loose gravel, and he had to fight the handlebars to keep the bike upright. The girl stirred, a small moan escaping her lips. Rusty held her tighter. "Easy, kid, easy. We're almost there." The engine coughed as he pulled into the gravel lot. He killed the ignition and sat there for a second, breathing hard. The world was quiet now, except for the ticking of the cooling engine and the soft sound of her breathing. He looked down at her face. Her eyes were closed. Her skin was the color of old paper. But her chest still moved. She was still with him. He slid off the bike, careful not to jostle her. His boots hit the gravel hard, and his knees nearly buckled. He grunted and steadied himself against the fender, then gathered her into his arms again, her body limp against his chest. The door to the clinic was maybe 30 feet away. It felt like a mile. He walked. Each step was slow. Careful, his arms ached, his back screamed. But he did not stop. He could feel her heartbeat against his ribs, small and fragile, like a bird's wing. He reached the door and shoved it open with his shoulder. The waiting room was empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A few plastic chairs lined the walls. A stack of old magazines sat on a corner table. The air smelled like antiseptic and paper. "Hello?" Rusty shouted. His voice echoed off the linoleum. "I need help. I need a doctor. Please." A door at the back of the room swung open. A nurse in white scrubs stepped out, her eyes going wide when she saw him. She was older, with gray streaked hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her name tag read Nurse Evelyn. "Sweet Lord," she breathed. She rushed forward, her shoes squeaking on the floor. "What happened? What's wrong with her?" "I don't know," Rusty said. His voice was rough, almost a growl. "I found her hung up on a fence. Barbed wire. She's lost a lot of blood." The nurse's professional training kicked in. She grabbed a gurney that was folded against the wall and wheeled it over. "Lay her down." Gently now, gently, Rusty lowered the girl onto the gurney, his arms trembling from the effort. He looked at his hands. They were stained with her blood. He had seen a lot of things in his 45 years, a lot of ugly things. But this was different. This was a child, a small broken child who had no one. The nurse started checking the girl's pulse, her fingers pressing against the girl's wrist. "She's alive," she said. "Barely. We need to get her to the exam room right now." She started pushing the gurney toward the back. Rusty followed, his boots heavy on the floor. The nurse glanced back at him. "What's her name? I need to fill out her chart." Rusty opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer. He didn't even know her name. She was a stranger. A girl he had found bleeding in a field. He reached into the girl's torn jacket pocket. His fingers brushed against something thin and crumpled. He pulled it out. A photograph. It was creased and worn, the edges frayed. A golden retriever smiled up at the camera, its tail a blur of joy. Somewhere in the background, a piece of a porch rail and a flower bed. A home. A memory. He turned the photo over. Nothing written on the back. Then he reached in again and found a small brass keychain, cold and heavy in his palm. Engraved on the front were 2 letters, MR. He stared at them for a long moment. MR. He didn't know those initials. He didn't know the girl in his arms. But he knew one thing for sure. She mattered. She mattered more than anything in the world. He held up the photo and keychain, his big hand shaking. "This is all she's got," he said. "Her name must be in here somewhere." The fluorescent lights in the waiting room hummed a low, tired song. Rusty sat in one of the plastic chairs, elbows on his knees, staring at his hands. The blood had dried into dark rust-colored lines in the creases of his palms. He turned them over, front and back, like he was looking at someone else's hands. Someone who had done something terrible. Someone who had saved a life. His leather vest felt heavy on his shoulders. The patches on it, the ones that told the world who he was, seemed like they belonged to a different man now. A man who rode hard and lived harder. A man who had seen too much and felt too little. But that man had not been the one who cut that girl down from the fence. That man had not held her like she was made of glass. The door at the back of the room swung open. Nurse Evelyn stepped out, carrying 2 foam cups. Steam curled up from them. She walked over and handed one to Rusty. "Coffee," she said. "Black, you look like you need it." He took the cup. His hands trembled slightly, and the coffee sloshed over the rim. He didn't care. He wrapped his fingers around the warm cup and held it tight. "She's stable," the nurse said. "For now. She's unconscious, but her heart is strong. She's got a mild concussion and a few deep cuts that needed stitches. The worst one is on her thigh. Barbed wire does a lot of damage." Rusty nodded. He took a sip of the coffee. It burned his tongue, but he didn't flinch. "She's also severely dehydrated," the nurse continued. "And she's underweight. A kid her age, she should be eating more. Running around, laughing, not this." She shook her head. "I've seen a lot of things in 30 years. But a child, out there in a field, all alone, that's a new kind of wrong." Rusty set the cup down. His throat felt tight. "Can I see her?" The nurse studied him for a moment. She looked at his leather vest, at the patches, at the beard and the rough hands. Then she looked at his eyes. Maybe she saw something there. Maybe she saw the same thing Rusty was feeling. A fury and a tenderness all tangled up together. 5 minutes, she said. She needs her rest. She led him to the back, through a narrow hallway, past a supply closet and a small break room. The door at the end was open. Rusty stepped inside. The room was small. White walls. A single window with the blinds drawn. A heart monitor beeped in steady rhythm. The girl lay in a narrow bed, a thin white sheet pulled up to her chin. An IV tube snaked from a bag to her arm. Her face was pale, but her chest rose and fell in a slow, even rhythm. Rusty walked to the chair beside the bed and sat down. The plastic seat creaked under his weight. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and just watched her. Her hair was tangled and dirty. Her cheeks were hollow. There were bruises on her arms, old ones that had faded to yellow and green, and new ones, purple and fresh, that had not had time to heal. He felt something twist inside him. Something hot and angry and sad, all at once. In her hand, the one that lay on top of the sheet, was the photograph. The golden retriever. She had been holding it the whole time, even when he carried her, even when he laid her on the gurney. She had kept her grip on that photo. He looked at it now. The dog was smiling, tongue out, happy, the kind of dog that had a good life. A dog that was loved. He reached out slowly and slid the photo from her fingers. It was soft, worn at the edges, folded in the middle. He opened it up and looked at it again. There was something written on the back, he realized. A small pencil writing, smudged, but still readable. Biscuit, my best friend. Rusty read those words 3 times. My best friend. A dog named Biscuit. A girl alone in the world, and her best friend was a dog. He tucked the photo into the pocket of his vest, right over his heart. Then he looked back at the girl. Her breathing was steady. Her chest rose and fell, rose and fell. She was alive. She was here. She was safe, at least for now. But he knew, deep in his gut, that this was not the end of it. Somebody had done this to her. Somebody had hurt her, and left her out there to die. He did not know who. He did not know why. But he was going to find out. He leaned in close, his voice low and rough, barely a whisper. No one hurts a kid on my watch. Rusty woke to the sound of a mop slapping against linoleum. His neck screamed with a dull, familiar pain. He had fallen asleep leaning forward, his head resting on his folded arms, his knees pressed against the metal bed frame of the girl's hospital bed. He blinked. The room was gray with early morning light. The blinds let in thin stripes of sun. The girl still lay in the bed, still pale, still asleep. The IV bag was lower now, nearly empty. The heart monitor beeped its steady song. Rusty straightened up. His back popped. His hands were stiff, and when he looked at them, he saw the dried blood still caked in the lines of his palms. Last night felt like a dream. A bad dream. But the girl was real. The blood was real. Nurse Evelyn appeared at the door, holding a clipboard. You're still here. Rusty rubbed his eyes. Didn't feel right leaving. She nodded. Smart man. She stepped to the bed and checked the girl's pulse. She hasn't woken up yet. That's normal, given the head injury. She needs rest. A lot of it. How long? Could be hours. Could be days. We'll know more when she opens her eyes. She looked at him. You should go home. Shower, eat. You can't help her if you're falling over. Rusty looked at the girl one more time. Her face was still, her breathing was even. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a crumpled receipt. On the back, he scribbled his name and number in a rough hand. He set it on the table beside the bed. If anything changes, he said, Anything at all. You call this number. I will, the nurse said. He walked out of the clinic. The morning air hit him like a cold wave. The parking lot was mostly empty. His Harley sat in the corner, dusted with dew. He swung his leg over the seat, fired up the engine, and let the rumble fill his chest. He knew a diner about 10 minutes down the road. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since yesterday. He needed food. And he needed to think. The diner was called Millie's. A bell jingled over the door when he walked in. A few heads turned. He was used to that. A Hell's Angel walking into a small-town diner got looks. Most of them were curious. Some were scared. He didn't care anymore. He slid into a booth in the corner facing the door. Habit. A waitress came over. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a tired smile. What can I get you, hon? Coffee, black, and a stack of pancakes. Coming right up. He sat back and reached into his pocket. His fingers found the keychain, the brass one. He pulled it out and set it on the table. The initials were small and clean. MR. He turned it over. There was a tiny scratched mark on the back, like someone had tried to carve something else, then given up. He ran his thumb over it, back and forth. The coffee came. The pancakes came. He ate without tasting. His eyes stayed on the keychain. MR. That was all he had. A keychain with initials and a photograph of a dog. He thought about the fence, the barbed wire, the way she had been caught, tangled, bleeding. She had tried to climb it. She had tried to escape. From what? From who? He picked up the keychain again and turned it over. Brass, worn smooth on one side. It had been used. Carried in a pocket or a bag. It mattered to somebody. The waitress came back to refill his coffee. She noticed the keychain. That's pretty. Where'd you find it? Found it with a girl who needs help, Rusty said. You ever seen anyone with the initials MR around here? She tilted her head. Can't say I have. But you might check the farm supply store down the road. They do custom keychains like that. Engraving and all. Rusty nodded. Thanks. He finished his breakfast, paid, and walked out into the sun. The keychain was in his pocket. He had one lead. It was not much, but it was something. He was about to swing his leg over the Harley when his phone buzzed in his vest. He pulled it out. The screen showed a number he did not know. He almost let it ring, but something pulled at him. He answered. Yeah? Mr. Malone? It was Nurse Evelyn's voice. She woke up. Just for a minute. She's very weak. Rusty's grip tightened on the phone. What did she say? There was a pause. She said one word. She said biscuit. Rusty closed his eyes. The photo, the golden retriever, the writing on the back. Biscuit, my best friend. That's her dog, he said. She wants her dog. She fell back asleep, the nurse said. But I thought you should know. Thank you. I'm on my way. He hung up. He stood there in the parking lot, the phone warm in his hand. The keychain was in his pocket. The photo was over his heart. MR. They were the girl's initials. He was sure of it now, and Biscuit was the dog. The only friend she had in the world. He fired up the Harley and pulled out onto the road. He did not know who had done this to her. He did not know where she came from. But he knew one thing for certain. He was going to find out. And when he did, he was going to make things right. Rusty pulled into the clinic parking lot and killed the engine. The morning sun was higher now, brighter. He walked inside and found Nurse Evelyn at the nurse's station. She's awake again. Evelyn said before he could ask. Still very weak, but she's been opening her eyes for longer stretches. Go on in, just keep your voice low. Rusty nodded and walked down the hall. The door to the room was cracked open. He pushed it gently and stepped inside. The girl was propped up slightly on the pillow. Her eyes were open. They were a soft brown, and they watched him with a mix of fear and curiosity. Her face was still bruised. A cut crossed her cheek. But there was something alive in her eyes now. Something that had not been there before. Hey, Rusty said softly. He pulled up a chair and sat down. I'm Rusty. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise. She blinked. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out the brass keychain with the initials MR. He held it up where she could see it. This was in your pocket, he said. I found it at the fence. The girl's eyes grew wider. A trembling finger came up and pointed at the keychain. She nodded, slow and weak. Rusty turned the keychain over. MR. Does that mean something to you? Your name, maybe? Her mouth opened. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. Hazel. Rusty leaned closer. Hazel? She nodded again, a small movement. Okay, Hazel, Rusty said. He looked at her wrist. He had not noticed before. A thin bracelet, the kind made of cloth and bead, hospital style. He gently lifted her hand and read the printed label. Hazel R. He glanced at the initials on the keychain. M.R. But the keychain says M.R. Is that you? Are you M.R.? Something flickered in her eyes. Pain. Deep pain. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Then, slow, she closed her eyes. Her whole face relaxed. She was still or asleep again. Nurse Evelyn appeared in the doorway. She shook her head gently. She's done for now. She can only stay awake for a few minutes at a time. Be patient with her. Rusty set the keychain back in his pocket. I will, thank you. He left the clinic with a new feeling in his chest. Hazel. Her name was Hazel. And the keychain did not say Hazel exactly, but he was sure the MR meant more than just her name. Maybe a middle name. Maybe something else. A fear no one with those initials had hurt her, or someone she wanted to hurt her. He would need to ask, but first, he had to find out where the keychain came from. He drove to the main street of town. 3 pawn shops, each with a dusty window and a bell over the door. He walked into all of them. He held up the keychain. No one recognized it. He tried the engraving shop. The old man behind the counter turned it over in his wrinkled hands. I've seen these many. Custom work. But this is quality brass. I'd call it farm grade. Heavy duty. Somebody had it made. Who makes things like this? Rusty asked. The old man shrugged. Maybe a feed store. Ranch supply. Somebody who does livestock tags. That's what he said. His next stop. The feed store was a large building on the edge of the town. A big sign hung over the door. Peterson's Feed and Supply. Rusty walked in and found the store full of grain sacks, tools, and dog food. A woman behind a long wooden counter smiled. Can I help you? Rusty pulled out the keychain. I'm trying to find where this was made. It has initials MR on it. The engraving is pretty specific. The woman took it. She held it to the light, turned it over. A small smile appeared on her face. Oh, I know this little thing. You do? Sure, Miller's Paws for Peace. She handed it back. Custom order. They had a batch of these made a while back. They gave them out to their volunteers and staff. The MR is probably one of their people. Rusty's brow kept. Miller's Paws for Peace. And the peace, is that a charity? She nodded. They train dogs over in Millersville, the other side of the hill. It's a big way for veterans. They breed golden retrievers and Labradors. Good people. Carl and Dana Miller run it. They're always doing fundraising and things for folks in need. Everyone around here knows them. Rusty's mouth went dry. He nearly repeated the name. Carl. Carl Miller. His brother. The brother he had not spoken to in 20 years. The brother who had inherited the family farm and all the anger along with it when their father died. He kept his voice steady. The farm. Where is it? The woman looked at him with fresh interest. Take the old county road about 15 miles west. Big white fence. You can't see it. There's a big sign at the gate. Paws for Peace Charity. You can't miss it. Thank you. He walked outside. He stood in the parking lot for a long moment. The air was quiet. He felt sun. Warm, his heart was beating too fast. Carl, he thought the name again. Carl had a wife. Dana, they had a big farm. Did they have a girl? Did they have Hazel? How was she from the fence? How was she anywhere near that farm? He swung his leg over the Harley. The engine roared to life. He pulled out of the parking lot and onto the county road, 15 miles west. He let the wind hit his face. He thought about the keychain. He thought about the girl. He thought about the blood on his hands. He remembered the old fight with his brother, the one that had divided them for decades, and he couldn't help but think of a link. But he couldn't make sense of it. Not yet. And then, there it was. A white wooden fence stretched for a long stretch along the road. A large hand-painted sign hung from the posts. It read, Miller's Paws for Peace Charity. Training, therapy, love. Rusty cut the engine, silence between them. He heard birds. He heard the sound of his own breathing. He was at a stand at the farm. Without knowing what he'd find, he walked toward a place he'd thought he'd never set foot on again. The home where his brother had the life he'd once felt had been stolen from him. Only now, he was in it. Something inside him told him nothing here was as still as the paint on that sign. He pushed open the gate and walked forward, to the farm, to the front door. The gravel crunched under Rusty's boots as he crossed the yard. A few dogs barked from a fenced enclosure off to the side. Golden retrievers, mostly, they wagged their tails at him, friendly and trusting. The sight of them made something twist in his gut. He climbed the 3 wooden steps to the farmhouse porch. The paint was fresh. A wind chime hung from the eave, singing softly in the breeze. Everything looked neat, orderly, like the kind of place people trusted. Rusty raised his hand and knocked. Footsteps sounded inside. Slow at first, then quicker. The door swung open. The man standing in the doorway was thinner than Rusty remembered. Gray streaked his hair. His eyes were the same pale blue as their father's. He wore a clean flannel shirt and jeans. Nothing like the boy Rusty had grown up with. Carl's face went white. Behind him, a woman appeared. She had sharp features and a polite smile that froze on her face when she saw Rusty. She gripped her husband's shoulder. "Jack?" Dana's voice came out thin and strained. "What are you doing here?" 20 years. 20 years since the funeral, since the reading of the will, since the shouting match in the front yard that ended with Rusty throwing his keys at Carl's feet and walking away. 20 years since he had spoken a single word to his brother. Rusty pulled the brass keychain from his pocket and held it up. The sunlight caught the engraved initials. M.R. "I'm looking for a girl," Rusty said, his voice low and steady. young girl, about 16. Her name is Hazel. This keychain was in her pocket when I found her hung up on a fence about 3 miles from here. Bled a lot. Somebody dumped her there or she crawled there. I need to know if you know anything about her." Carl's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Hazel? I don't know any Hazel. That's not a name we, Dana, cut in, her voice too high, too quick. We don't have any children, Jack. You know that. We run the charity. We train dogs. We don't have any." Rusty didn't wait for her to finish. He stepped forward, past them both, into the house. The doorframe creaked as he pushed through. "Jack." Carl called behind him. "Jack, you can't just—" Rusty walked through the living room. It was clean, polished, photos on the walls of Carl and Dana at charity events, shaking hands with politicians holding puppies. The whole place smelled like lemon cleaner and dog food. Not a single photo of a child. He moved through the kitchen, the dining room. A hallway led to a set of stairs going down, basement door. It was closed, but it had a padlock on the outside. New, heavy, Rusty stopped in front of it. "Jack, don't," Carl said, his voice cracking. He had followed Rusty into the hallway. Dana stood behind him, pale and trembling. That's storage. We keep old equipment down there." Tools, and Rusty reached into his pocket. He pulled out his knife, the same one he had used to cut Hazel free from the fence. The blade clicked open. "Open it," Rusty said. Carl didn't move. "Open it, or I'll cut it." Carl's hands shook as he pulled a key from his pocket. He fumbled with the padlock. It clicked open. Rusty pushed the door wide and descended the stairs. The basement smelled like damp concrete and fear. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a low yellow light. In the corner there was a mattress. Thin, stained, no sheets. A plastic bucket sat beside it. The walls were bare concrete. High up, a small window let in a sliver of light, too small for anyone to climb through. And on the wall near the mattress, bolted into the concrete, were dog chains. 3 of them, with metal clips at the ends. Just the right size for a wrist. Rusty stood still. He heard his own heartbeat in his ears. He felt the weight of the keychain in his pocket, the weight of the blood on his hands, the weight of everything he had just walked into. He turned around. Carl was standing at the bottom of the stairs now. His face was pale as paper. His eyes were wet. Dana stayed at the top, gripping the railing like she might fall. Rusty didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Carl's knees buckled. He dropped to the floor of the basement onto the cold concrete, and he began to sob. Great, heaving sobs that shook his whole body. He pressed his hands to his face. "We adopted her," Carl choked out, "from foster care. 2 years ago. We told people we were doing a good thing, a charitable thing. But we needed help. With the dogs, with the cleaning, with everything. And she was strong, Jack, she was so strong. But she wouldn't stay. She kept trying to run away, kept trying to get help. So we locked her down here. Just at night. Just to keep her safe, to keep her from leaving." Donna spoke from the top of the stairs, her voice small and broken. "The fence. She got out through the fence. We found her gone in the morning. We thought she'd come back. We didn't know she'd." Rusty pulled out his phone. He dialed. The sheriff's car came up the gravel drive with its lights flashing, but no siren. 2 deputies stepped out. One was older, with a gray mustache and a tired face. The other was a woman in her early 30s with sharp eyes and a calm manner. Deputy Maya. Rusty met them at the door. He didn't say much. He just pointed to the basement. The sheriff went down first. Deputy Maya followed. Rusty stood in the kitchen and listened to the sounds. Carl's sobbing. Dana's thin protests. The click of handcuffs. When they came back up, Carl's wrists were bound in front of him. His face was streaked with tears and snot. Dana walked behind him, her head held high but her lips trembling. She kept her eyes on the floor. The sheriff read them their rights in a flat, practiced voice. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Carl nodded. Dana said nothing. They were led across the yard toward the squad car. The dogs in the enclosure barked, confused by the commotion. Biscuit's mother pressed her nose against the fence. Watching, Rusty stood on the porch. He watched his brother stumble over the gravel. He didn't feel triumph. He just felt tired. Heavy, like his bones had turned to lead. Deputy Maya opened the back door of the squad car. Carl ducked his head and climbed in. Dana paused at the door, one hand on the frame. She turned. Her eyes found Rusty. They were wide and wild and full of something that looked like fear and fury all mixed together. You think you've won, Jack? Her voice came out high and sharp. You think you're the hero? You're not. You're the reason she was hidden in the first place. Rusty frowned. What are you talking about? Dana's mouth twisted into something that was almost a smile. She's your granddaughter, Jack. You're Jenny's baby. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. His breath left him. The world tilted. What? Jenny had a baby, Dana said, her voice rising, almost screaming now. She was 16 when she had her. We found out after Jenny died. The foster system had her. We took her. We knew you'd come looking if you found out. You'd want custody. You'd ruin everything. So we kept her. We kept her hidden. And damn you, Jack. We would have kept her forever if you hadn't. The sheriff grabbed Dana's arm and pushed her into the car. The door slammed. Her voice cut off behind the glass. Rusty didn't move. He stood on the porch of his brother's house, the paint fresh beneath his boots, the wind chimes singing in the breeze, and he felt the ground fall away beneath him. Jenny's baby. His granddaughter. He had a granddaughter. She had been out there, in that pasture, bleeding on that fence. She had been alone and scared and hurt, and she was his own flesh and blood. His little girl's little girl. He didn't remember sinking to the porch steps. But suddenly he was sitting there, his head in his hands, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He thought about Jenny. About her smile, about the way she used to laugh when he pushed her on the tire swing. About the phone call that told him she was gone. Now this. Deputy Maya walked over. She didn't say anything right away. She just stood there, letting the silence sit between them. Behind her, the squad car pulled away, gravel crunching under the tires. The dust settled slowly in the afternoon light. Rusty, she said quietly, I need to show you something. He looked up. His eyes were red. His hands hung loose between his knees. What? Deputy Maya reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small velvet pouch. It was worn and faded, the color of a dusty plum. She held it out to him. We found this in Hazel's pocket at the hospital, she said. She wouldn't let go of it. Even when she was barely conscious, she had it clutched in her hand. Rusty took the pouch. His fingers were thick and calloused. He opened the drawstring and tipped the contents into his palm. A ring. It was old, tarnished, a thin gold band with a small diamond that caught the light and threw it back in pale sparks. On the inside, the engraving had been worn smooth in places, but he could still read it. To Mr. Always J. Rusty stared at it. His mind churned. "You're Jenny's ring," Deputy Maya said. "We believe she wore this, or kept it." But the J in the inscription, "It isn't you, Rusty. Your name is Jack." The initials Mr. could match her or someone else, but the J, that's a different person. Rusty looked up at her. Then who? Deputy Maya met his eyes. Her expression was heavy. "Careful, we need to find out who gave her that ring. Rusty, we need to find Hazel's father." Rusty closed his fist around the ring. The metal was cold against his skin. Somewhere inside the farmhouse, a dog barked. The wind chimes sang. He looked out across the pasture, toward the fence where he had found Hazel. The barbed wire glittered in the sun. He thought about his daughter, about the secrets she had carried, about the child she had left behind. "I'll find him," Rusty said. His voice was rough. "Low, whoever he is. I'll find him." Deputy Maya nodded slowly. "I'll help you." Rusty stood up. He put the ring back in the pouch and tucked it into his vest pocket, close to his heart. He looked at the empty driveway where the squad car had disappeared. He had a granddaughter. And somewhere out there, she had a father. The clinic waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Rusty sat in a plastic chair by the window, his elbows on his knees, the velvet pouch open in his hand. The ring sat in his palm like a tiny, heavy secret. He turned it over. The diamond caught the light. The engraving read to Mr. Always J. Mr. His daughter's name was Jenny Malone, but her middle name was Rose. Jenny Rose Malone. Mr. didn't fit her, unless the M stood for something else. Someone else. Rusty closed his eyes. The memories came like a slow tide. Jenny at 7, riding her bike too fast down the gravel road, her hair flying behind her like a flag. Jenny at 12, crying in the barn because a stray dog had died. Jenny at 15, sullen and secretive. Staying out late. Coming home with bruises on her arms that she wouldn't explain. He had been too angry to ask the right questions. Too proud to listen. Then, the call. The one that came at 2 a.m. A voice he didn't recognize telling him his daughter was gone. Overdose. She was 19. He had punched a hole in the wall that night. He had blamed everyone. The dealer, the club, himself, but he had never blamed the father of her child. Because he never knew she had one. Now he knew different. Rusty looked at the ring again. J. A man. A man who gave Jenny this ring. A man she kept it from. A man whose name she never told anyone. His jaw tightened. He had spent 20 years being angry. Angry at the world. Angry at his brother. Angry at himself. But this anger was different. This anger had a name attached to it. Or at least a letter. He heard footsteps. Deputy Maya came through the door, a manila folder in her hand. Her boots made soft sounds on the linoleum. "Rusty," she said. "I ran the search." He looked up. She sat down across from him. She opened the folder. Inside were printouts, old records, photocopies of documents that had yellowed with time. "I went back through Jenny's old files," she said. "School records, medical records, Anything from that time. And I found a name that comes up more than once. She slid a paper across the table. Jacob Miller. Rusty stared at it. Miller? Not your brother's family, Maya said quickly. No relation. Jacob Miller. He was in a different Hells Angels chapter, a rival one. He was active back then. The name hit Rusty like a cold wave. Jacob Miller. He remembered the bar fight. It was 20 years ago, a dusty roadhouse outside of town. Someone had said something. Someone had thrown a punch. It had started over a pool table and ended in glass and blood. Rusty had been younger then, hot-headed, mean in a way he wasn't proud of now. Jacob Miller had been the other man in the fight. It went bad. Real bad. Rusty had put Jacob in the hospital for 3 weeks, almost killed him. He had never thought about Jacob again. Until now. Jacob, Rusty said slowly. That's the J. Maya nodded. The engraving says always, J, and the timeline matches. Jenny was 16 when she had Hazel. That was 15 years ago. Jacob was still in the club then. He and Jenny might have known each other. It's possible. Rusty's hands began to shake. Not from fear. From something deeper. He had tried to kill this man. And this man might be the father of his granddaughter. He put the ring back in the pouch. He tucked it into his vest. I need to find him, Rusty said. Where is he now? Maya hesitated. She pulled out another paper. This is the last address we have on file. But it's old. He left the club about a year after the fight. He left? Got clean, from what I can tell. Moved out of state. No criminal record since. He started a new life. Rusty stood up. His knees popped. He pulled out his phone, an old flip phone with a cracked screen. I'm calling the club president, he said. They'll know where he is. Maya watched him. You sure you want to do this alone? Rusty dialed. His thumb pressed the buttons with hard, steady clicks. The phone rang twice before a low voice answered. Malone, what do you need? Jacob Miller, Rusty said. From the old rival chapter. I need his last known address. Silence, then a low whistle. Jake? That old snake? He's not in the club anymore. Hasn't been for years. He got religion or something. Moved up to the mountains. Runs a little church outside of Pine Ridge. Rusty wrote the address on the back of his hand with a pen Maya handed him. Thanks, he said. He hung up. Pine Ridge, a small mountain town 3 hours north. A church. A pastor. Rusty looked at the address. Then he looked at the pouch in his vest. He had tried to kill this man once. Now he had to stand in front of him and ask if he was Hazel's father. He put the phone in his pocket. His chest felt tight. No matter what it took, he would find Jacob Miller. He would look that man in the eyes. He would find out the truth. Because Hazel deserved that. And so did Jenny. The mountain road twisted like a snake. Rusty leaned into each curve, his Harley growling beneath him. Pine trees crowded the hillside, dark and tall. The air smelled of sap and rain. He had not slept. He had not eaten. All he had was the ring in his vest and a name burning in his head. Jacob Miller. The road climbed higher. The town of Pine Ridge appeared below him, small and quiet. A few houses. A general store. A gas station with one pump. And there, at the edge of town, a white wooden church with a simple steeple. Rusty pulled into the gravel lot. He killed the engine. The silence rushed in like a wave. He sat there for a long moment. His hands stayed tight on the handlebars. His knuckles were white. 20 years ago, he had nearly killed this man. 20 years ago, he had been a different person. Younger, angrier, broken in ways he did not understand yet. Now he was here, and he did not know what he would find. He swung his leg off the bike, his boots crunched on the gravel. The church door was open. Soft light spilled out. Voices drifted from inside. He walked up the steps. His heart beat hard in his chest. Inside, the church was small and warm. Wooden pews. A simple cross at the front. Sunlight poured through plain windows. The service was ending. People stood and talked in small groups. A few children ran between the pews, and there, by the door, stood a man in a black shirt with a white collar. Jacob Miller. He was older now. Gray streaked his hair. His face was lined and gentle. He was laughing at something a parishioner said, shaking hands, nodding warmly. Then he looked up, and he saw Rusty. The laugh died on his lips. His face went pale. His hand stopped mid-shake. For a moment, the whole world seemed to stop moving. Recognition flooded his eyes. Then fear. Then something else. Something deeper. Rusty stood in the doorway. He did not move. He did not speak. He just waited. The parishioner looked confused. Jacob pulled his hand back slowly. He said something quiet to the man. The man nodded and walked away. One by one, the parishioners filed out. They glanced at Rusty as they passed. Some nodded politely. Others looked away. The last one closed the door behind them, and the church went quiet. Just the two of them now. The sunlight slanted through the windows. Dust floated in the beams. Jacob stood by the door, his hands clasped in front of him. Rusty stood by the pews, his boots planted on the old wooden floor. They looked at each other across 15 years of distance. Jacob spoke first. His voice was rough. Rusty. Rusty did not answer. He reached into his vest. His fingers found the velvet pouch. He pulled it out. He opened it slowly. The ring fell into his palm. He held it up. The diamond caught the light. The engraving gleamed. "To Mr. Rusty said. His voice was flat. Always, Jacob's face crumpled. He stared at the ring like it was a ghost. His eyes filled with tears. His hands trembled at his sides. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then, he whispered, "I've been looking for her for 15 years. The words hung in the air. Rusty felt something crack inside his chest, something hard and old, something he had carried for so long he had forgotten it was there. Her name was Hazel, Rusty said. She's alive. She's 16. And she's been through hell. Jacob pressed a hand to his mouth. Tears slid down his cheeks. He took a step forward, then stopped. His eyes stayed fixed on the ring. Jenny, he said. She never told me. I did not know. I swear to God I did not know. Rusty looked at him. All the anger he had carried on the ride up. All the old grudges. They were still there, but they did not feel as heavy as they used to. He closed his hand around the ring. He put it back in the pouch. He tucked it into his vest. We need to talk, Rusty said, about a lot of things. Jacob nodded. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. His collar was crooked. His voice cracked when he spoke. There is a bench out back, he said. By the garden. We can sit. Rusty nodded. He turned toward the door. Then he stopped. He looked back over his shoulder. For the record, he said, I came here to hate you. But I do not have room for hate right now. I have a granddaughter to save. Jacob looked at him. His tears had dried. Something new flickered in his eyes. Hope, then let's save her together, he said. Rusty did not answer. He just walked out the door, into the sunlight, toward the bench in the garden. The church garden was a quiet place. Tomato plants grew in neat rows. Marigolds bloomed along the fence. A wooden bench sat under an old oak tree. Jacob led Rusty to the back door of the church. Not the sanctuary, a small office. Bookshelves lined the walls. A desk sat in the corner. 2 chairs faced each other. "Sit," Jacob said. His voice was soft. He closed the door behind them. Rusty sat. The chair creaked under his weight. He kept his hands on his knees. He did not know what to do with them. Jacob sat across from him. He folded his hands in his lap. He stared at the floor for a long moment. Then he began to speak. "I met Jenny at a diner in Reno," he said. "She was 19. She was waiting tables. She had this laugh that filled the whole room." Rusty felt his chest tighten. He remembered that laugh. He had not heard it in years. "I was in the club back then," Jacob said. "Your club's rival. We were enemies. But she did not care about any of that. She said I looked sad. She said I needed someone to see me." Jacob paused. His voice cracked. "She was right. I was sad. I was angry. I was a mess. But when I was with her, I felt like I could be somebody different." Rusty watched him. The anger was still there, but it was fading. Slowly, like mist burning off in the morning sun. "I loved her," Jacob said. "I loved her more than I loved the club, more than I loved myself. I told her I would leave. I told her we would start fresh. Somewhere new, somewhere quiet." His eyes filled with tears again. "But I did not leave fast enough. One night there was a fight. Outside the bar, I got hurt. Jenny saw the blood. She saw what I was, what I could become." Jacob wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "She left me that night. I woke up alone in a motel room. She was gone. No note, no number, nothing. I searched for weeks, months, years." He pulled out his wallet. It was worn and cracked. He opened it slowly. Inside was a folded photograph. He handed it to Rusty. The photo was old. The edges were soft and bent. In it, a young woman smiled at the camera. She wore a yellow sundress. Her hair was long and brown. Her eyes were bright. Jenny, on her 20th birthday. Rusty stared at the photo. His hands shook. "That's the last picture I ever took of her," Jacob said. "I carried it with me through everything, through the binges, through the streets, through the years I spent trying to forget her." Rusty's throat closed up. He wanted to speak, but the words would not come. "I fell apart after she left," Jacob said. "I drank. I used. I ended up in a ditch outside Phoenix. A pastor found me. He pulled me out. He gave me water and a Bible and a reason to live." Jacob looked at his hands. "I have been sober 14 years. I went to seminary. I came here to be small and quiet and useful. I thought maybe God would forgive me for what I was." He looked at Rusty. "I never stopped looking for her. I put her face on every prayer I ever said. I begged God to let me find her. Just once, just to say I was sorry." Rusty lowered the photo. His eyes were wet. He did not try to hide it. "She died," he said. "Jenny died of an overdose, 5 years ago. I found her in her apartment. She was gone. I never knew she had a daughter." Jacob closed his eyes. A sob shook his shoulders. "She had a baby," he whispered. "My baby. Our baby. And I did not know." The 2 men sat in silence. The sunlight slanted through the window. Dust floated in the beam. The photo lay on Rusty's knee like a relic. Rusty looked at the photo again. Jenny's smile, her bright eyes. His daughter, the girl he could not save. But her daughter was alive. Hazel was alive. Rusty wiped his face with the back of his hand. He looked up at Jacob. "She is in the clinic," Rusty said. "She is healing. She has been hurt in ways I cannot describe." Jacob looked at him. His face was raw, broken open. "Can I meet her?" he asked. "Please, I know I have no right. I know I failed her. But I need to see her face. Just once." Rusty felt the old pride rise up in him, the part of him that hated Jacob, the part that wanted to say no, to protect Hazel, to keep this stranger away. But then he thought of Hazel. Her pale face, her whispered words, the way she flinched at sudden sounds. She did not need another enemy. She needed family. Rusty let out a long breath. "All right," he said. "Let's go." They drove in Rusty's truck. Jacob sat in the passenger seat. Neither of them spoke. The road unwound below them. The sun began to sink toward the hills. At the clinic, the nurse nodded at Rusty. She had seen him enough times now. She pointed to the door at the end of the hall. Rusty pushed the door open. The room was small and quiet. A window let in the last of the daylight. Hazel lay in the bed, her eyes closed. Her breathing was slow and steady. She looked small, so small. Rusty stepped up to the bed. He touched her shoulder gently. "Hazel," he said, "there is someone here to see you." Her eyes fluttered open. Sleepy, confused, she blinked at the ceiling. Then she turned her head. Jacob stood by the door. His hands were clasped in front of him. His face was pale. His eyes were full. Hazel looked at him. She studied his face. Her brows furrowed. Then her eyes went wide. She whispered, "You have my mom's eyes." Jacob's legs buckled. He grabbed the door frame. Tears poured down his face. He covered his mouth with his hand. Hazel reached out her hand. It was thin and bruised. She stretched it toward him. Jacob crossed the room. He took her hand gently. He dropped to his knees beside the bed. He bowed his head over her fingers. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I am so sorry." Hazel looked at him. Then she looked at Rusty. Her eyes moved between them, the old biker and the pastor. Rusty stepped forward. He put a hand on Jacob's shoulder. He squeezed. "We'll do this together," he said. Hazel closed her eyes. A small smile crossed her face. She did not let go of Jacob's hand. Days passed in a quiet rhythm. Rusty woke before sunrise. He drove to the clinic. He sat by Hazel's bed. He held her water cup. He read her dog training books out loud. Hazel listened. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes she just slept. Jacob came in the afternoons. He brought flowers from the church garden. He brought a small guitar and played soft songs. Hazel liked that. She would tap her fingers on the blanket. She called him Dad. It took him a while to answer. When he did, his voice cracked. They talked about Jenny, not the sad parts, the good parts. Rusty told Hazel about the time Jenny painted his motorcycle pink as a joke. He had been furious. But he never painted it back. Jacob laughed at that. Then Jacob told Hazel about the diner in Reno, how Jenny would slide him extra pie under the counter, how she called him by his first name, not his road name. "He always tried to find me," Jacob said one evening. Rusty looked up. "I placed ads in newspapers. I called shelters. I drove across 3 states. I never found her." Jacob's hands shook. "I thought she was gone forever." And she was. "But she left me something better." He looked at Hazel. She was asleep. Rusty felt his anger soften. It was not gone, but it was smaller. It was becoming something else. Deputy Maya met Rusty in the clinic lobby on the 6th day. She carried a thick folder. Her face was serious. "I filed the petition for temporary guardianship," she said. "The court set a hearing." Rusty nodded. "When?" 10 days. Maya paused. "There's a caseworker assigned. Her name is Mrs. Okafor. She's fair. But she's careful. Rusty crossed his arms. What does that mean? Maya opened the folder. She pulled out a form. She asked about your affiliation, your jacket, your brothers. I'm not hiding my club, Rusty said. I know, but you should be ready. Maya looked at him. She said the court might see it as a risk. Rusty ran a hand over his beard. I have a record. I know. But I never hurt a child. I never hurt anyone who did not deserve it. Maya closed the folder. I believe you, and I'll speak for you. But the judge will decide. Rusty thanked her. He watched her walk away. Then he went back to Hazel's room. The day of the hearing came fast. Rusty wore a clean shirt. He left his cut in the truck. That was his plan. He would not hide his brothers. But he would not wear the club into the courtroom either. His lawyer was a young woman with sharp eyes. Her name was Miss Torres. She met him on the courthouse steps. Good news and bad news, she said. The judge agreed to hear the petition. But Mrs. Okafor filed a report. Rusty waited. She recommends denying guardianship. She says your involvement with the Hells Angels creates an unstable environment for a minor. Rusty said nothing. Miss Torres leaned closer. You need to clean up your image, Mr. Malone cut ties, at least publicly. If you want this girl, you need to look like someone the court can trust. Rusty looked at the courthouse. The tall columns, the heavy doors. He thought about his brothers, the men who showed up at his cabin when he was in despair, the men who brought groceries and wrote letters. No, he said. Miss Malone, please. I will not turn my back on my brothers. His voice was quiet. They are not perfect, neither am I. But they stood by me, and Hazel will never be safe if I pretend to be someone I am not. Miss Torres sighed. Then we argue from the truth. Rusty nodded. That's all I've got. That evening, Rusty went to the clinic. Hazel was sitting up. Her hair was brushed. Her face had color. You look better, he said. I feel better, she said. The nurse let me eat real food. Rusty sat on the chair beside her. He took her hand. Her fingers were still thin. But they held his back. I have a hearing. They want to decide where you live. Hazel's face went still. What if they say no? Rusty looked her in the eye. Then I fight harder. She was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, when I have a home. A real home. Can I have a dog? Rusty smiled. You can have a whole pack if you want. I just want one. She looked down. A dog that sleeps on my bed. Rusty squeezed her hand. His voice was thick. Honey, you are going to have that dog. I promise you. I will bring Biscuit back to you. Even if I have to carry her through that courthouse door myself. Hazel looked up. Her eyes were wet. But she smiled. Promise? Promise. The courthouse was packed. Every bench was full. Rusty sat at the front table with Miss Torres. He wore a clean white shirt. His arms were bare. The tattoos showed. The eagle. The skull. The letters that spelled out the club's name. People stared. Some whispered. Rusty kept his eyes forward. Jacob sat on the other side of the aisle. He wore his collar and a plain black suit. He looked calm. But his hands were folded tight. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Judge Harmon was a small woman with gray hair and sharp glasses. She looked at Rusty first, then at Jacob, then at the file in front of her. Let's begin, she said. Mrs. Okafor spoke first. She was kind but firm. She talked about Rusty's record, the bar fight 20 years ago, his affiliation with the Hells Angels. She called it a concern for stability. Miss Torres argued back. She spoke about Rusty's volunteer work, the letters from his club brothers, the women at the diner who came to vouch for him. She pointed out that Rusty had no violent offenses in over a decade. Judge Harmon listened. She wrote notes. Her face gave nothing away. Then Jacob stood up. He walked to the witness stand. He swore to tell the truth. He sat down. He looked at the judge. His voice was steady. "Your Honor," he said, "I am Hazel's father. I did not know she existed until a few weeks ago. I searched for her mother for 15 years. I never found her. I thought I had failed." He paused. He looked at Rusty. "Jack Malone and I were enemies once. We almost killed each other in a bar." "That is true." He swallowed. "But he changed. And I changed. We both carry scars. We both carry guilt. But that girl in that hospital bed, she doesn't care about our past. She cares about who held her when she was bleeding. That was Jack. Not me." The courtroom went silent. Judge Harmon looked at Jacob. "You were a member of the same club, Pastor Miller?" "I was," Jacob said. "I left. I found the Lord. He found me. But I will tell you this, Your Honor. Some of the best men I ever knew wore leather cuts, and some of the worst wore suits." A low murmur went through the crowd. Rusty felt his throat tighten. He did not look away. Then the judge turned to him. "Mr. Malone, you have a criminal record. You have a reputation. Why should I give this girl to you?" Rusty stood. He kept his hands at his sides. He spoke clear and slow. "Your Honor, I found Hazel on a fence. She was bleeding. She could not move. I carried her to my truck and drove like the devil was behind me." He paused. "I did not know who she was. I did not know she was my granddaughter. I just knew she was a kid who needed help. And I helped her." He looked at the judge. "I am not a perfect man. I have done things I am not proud of. But I have never hurt a child. And I never will. That girl needs a home. I have a cabin. I have a garden. I have a whole bunch of rough old men who will protect her like she is their own blood." He took a breath. "Because she is my blood. And I will not fail her." Judge Harmon looked at the file. Then she looked up. "I would like to hear from Hazel." The room shifted. People turned. Hazel was brought in through a side door. She was in a wheelchair. Her arm was still bandaged. But her face was bright. She looked at Rusty. She smiled. A deputy rolled her to the front. The judge leaned forward. "Hazel, you can speak to me." Hazel nodded. Her voice was small but sure. "Mr. Malone saved my life," she said. "He didn't hurt me. He picked me up when I was bleeding. He visited me every day. He read me books. He promised me a dog." She paused. "I want to live with him and Biscuit." The judge looked at her. She removed her glasses. She wiped her eyes. "Temporary guardianship is granted," she said. "We will review in 30 days." The room exploded with applause. Rusty felt his knees go weak. Miss Torres grabbed his arm. "Congratulations, Miss Malone." Rusty drove Hazel home that afternoon. She sat in the passenger seat. Her seatbelt was snug. Her hands were in her lap. "Are you nervous?" he asked. "A little," she said. Rusty smiled. "Me too." The cabin was small. It had a porch, a garden, a single light in the window. Rusty parked the truck. He helped Hazel out. She used a crutch. He walked slow. He opened the front door. He led her down the hall. He stopped at a yellow door. "This is your room," he said. He opened it. The walls were bright yellow. Sunlight spilled through the window. A small bed was pushed against the wall. A window seat held a stack of books, and on the bed, curled up in a ball, was Biscuit. Hazel gasped. She dropped her crutch. She rushed forward. Biscuit lifted her head. Her tail began to wag. She jumped off the bed and ran to Hazel. Hazel fell to her knees. She wrapped her arms around the dog. Biscuit licked her face. Hazel laughed. She cried. She held on tight. "You came back," she whispered. "You came back." Biscuit whined. She nuzzled into Hazel's neck. Then she pulled away and jumped back on the bed. She circled once. She lay down. She looked at Hazel with big brown eyes. Hazel looked at Rusty. "She wants me to come up." Rusty nodded. "She's waiting for you." Hazel climbed onto the bed. Biscuit scooted over. She rested her head on Hazel's lap. Hazel lay down. Biscuit curled up beside her. She put her nose against Hazel's hand. That night, Biscuit fell asleep on Hazel's bed. She pushed her feet into the blanket. She snored soft little puffs. Hazel slept too. For the first time in years, she slept deep. She did not dream of fences. She did not dream of chains. She dreamed of a yellow room and a golden dog, and a gruff old man who kept his promises. Rusty stood in the doorway. He watched them. Biscuit's tail thumped once. Hazel's chest rose and fell. He clicked off the light. "Good night," he whispered. 3 weeks passed like a slow golden river. Rusty woke early each morning. He made pancakes. The first batch was burnt. The second batch was worse. Hazel laughed and took over the spatula. "You flip too hard," she said. "I flip with love," he said. She rolled her eyes. But she smiled. They ate at the small kitchen table. Biscuit sat between them. Her tail swept the floor like a happy broom. She waited. Very patient, very hopeful. "You already had breakfast," Hazel said. Biscuit thumped her tail. "She disagrees," Rusty said. Hazel slipped her a piece of pancake under the table. The chickens came next. Hazel named them all. Henrietta, Clucky, Nugget. She talked to them like old friends. Rusty watched from the porch. His coffee warmed his hands. His heart felt lighter than it had in years. Biscuit followed Hazel everywhere. To the garden, to the mailbox, to the little yellow shed where Rusty kept his tools. She even followed her to the bathroom. Hazel said it was because Biscuit was her shadow. "She's not my shadow," Hazel said. "She's my heartbeat." Rusty did not know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Every Tuesday and Thursday, they drove to the community center for therapy dog training class. The class was full of people, old ladies with poodles, a young man with a rescue mutt, a couple with a giant, goofy Labrador. Rusty walked in wearing his leather vest. The room went quiet. Then, Hazel came in behind him. Biscuit trotted at her side. Hazel smiled at everyone. She said hello to each person by name. The room relaxed. The instructor was a retired military man named Mr. Grant. He had a silver mustache and a soft voice. He taught the dogs to sit, to stay, to heel. Biscuit learned fast. She was smart. She watched Hazel with careful eyes. She wanted to please her. Hazel was a natural. She spoke to Biscuit in low, gentle tones. She used hand signals. She praised her with quiet words. "Mr. Grant pulled Rusty aside. Your granddaughter has a gift," he said. Rusty felt his chest swell. "She does, sir, and you're not so bad yourself." Rusty laughed. "I'm just the chauffeur." "Chauffeurs are important, mister," Grant said. "She trusts you. That is everything." At home, Rusty taught Hazel to weld. He set up an old workbench in the shed. He gave her a mask. He showed her how to hold the torch steady. She burned her glove twice. She dropped the rod once, but she picked it up and went again. "Why do you want to learn this?" he asked. "Because you know how," she said. That answer stopped him cold. He cleared his throat. "All right then. Watch the puddle, not the spark." She watched the puddle. She learned quick. "Who taught you?" she asked. "My father," he said. He was a welder, worked on oil rigs, tough man. Silent, but he showed me things. Hazel nodded. She did not ask more. She just held the torch and waited for his guidance. In turn, she taught him about dogs. Biscuit is happy when her ears are soft, she said. When she's stressed, her tail goes stiff. You have to read her whole body, not just the tail. Rusty listened. He watched. He learned. You're a good teacher, he said. You're a good student, she said. The community slowly warmed to them. Mrs. Alvarez at the diner started giving Rusty a discount on his coffee. The barber, old Mr. Chen, waved when he drove past. The kids on the school bus started saying hi to Hazel, and then one Thursday afternoon, the gossip lady came up the drive. Her name was Mrs. Pettibone. She was small and round, with bright eyes that missed nothing. She carried a pie. Apple, it smelled like cinnamon and home. I made this for your granddaughter, she said. I heard she likes pancakes. Rusty looked at her. She likes pie too. Mrs. Pettibone smiled. Good, because I also made a second one. She set them on the porch. She did not leave right away. She sat on the step. She watched Hazel train Biscuit in the yard. That girl has a gift, she said. I know, Rusty said. You're not as scary as people say, Miss Malone. He smiled a little. I don't bite. Good, she said. Because I bake every Thursday. The local fair came at the end of the third week. Flags hung from every booth. Music spilled out of speakers. The smell of corn dogs and funnel cake filled the air. Rusty and Hazel walked through the crowd. Biscuit had a red bandana around her neck. She pranced like she knew she was handsome. Hazel entered Biscuit in the fetch contest. It was simple. Dogs ran to a stuffed toy and brought it back. Biscuit was the fastest. She brought the toy back every time. She dropped it at Hazel's feet. She wagged her tail with pure joy. The crowd cheered. Hazel won a blue ribbon. She held it up like a trophy. She hugged Biscuit. The dog licked her cheek. Hazel laughed and spun around. Rusty watched from the fence line. His heart was so full he thought it might burst. Then the pie-eating contest was announced. Rusty looked at Hazel. What do you think? Get in there, old man, she said. He laughed. He rolled up his sleeves. He took his place at the long table. 10 other men sat with him. They looked competitive. Rusty looked hungry. The whistle blew. He shoved his face into the pie. Apple, warm, sweet. He ate like he hadn't seen food in weeks. Crumbs flew. Juice ran down his chin. He finished first. He raised his hands. The crowd roared. He won a small trophy, a little golden pie. He held it up. Hazel cheered. Biscuit barked. And then Rusty saw him. A man in a gray suit stood near the ticket booth. He was tall, thin. He held a clipboard against his chest. His eyes were fixed on Rusty. He did not smile. Rusty recognized him. The county prosecutor. The man who had appealed the custody decision. The man who wanted to take Hazel away. Rusty's smile faded. The trophy felt heavy in his hand. The knot of dread settled in his gut. The blue ribbon sat on the kitchen table like a small sun. Hazel had propped it against the salt shaker. She kept looking at it. She kept smiling. I'm going to hang it on my wall, she said. Which wall? Rusty asked. The one by my bed, so I can see it in the morning. Biscuit wagged her tail. She seemed to understand. She always seemed to understand. Rusty washed the dishes. Hazel dried them. She hummed a little song. Something soft and sweet. He did not know the words. But he liked the sound. Then the knock came. 3 sharp knocks at the front door. Rusty dried his hands on a towel. He glanced at the clock. It was after 8. No one visited after 8. Not in this town. He opened the door. A deputy stood on the porch. Not Deputy Maya. A young man with a serious face and a folded envelope in his hand. He held it out. "Mr. Malone, you've been served." Rusty took the envelope. His fingers felt thick and clumsy. "What is it?" Hazel asked from behind him. "Just a minute, sweetheart," he said. He opened the envelope. The paper inside was stiff. Official, the letterhead read, County Court of Appeals. He skimmed the words. They blurred. Then they sharpened. The prosecutor had filed a motion to reconsider, citing the appellant's criminal record, citing his affiliation with the Hells Angels, citing the bar fight 20 years ago, the one that had sent him to prison. Rusty's chest tightened. "Mr. Malone?" the deputy said. "I need a minute," Rusty said. He closed the door. He stood in the small hallway. The paper trembled in his hand. "Rusty?" Hazel's voice was small. He turned. She stood at the kitchen doorway. The blue ribbon was still on the table. Biscuit sat beside her. Quiet, watchful. "What is it?" Hazel asked. Rusty folded the paper. He shoved it into his jacket pocket. He put on a smile. It felt like a mask. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just some paperwork. Grown-up stuff." She looked at him. She did not believe him. He could see it in her eyes. But she did not push. She just nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "I'm going to read for a bit." "Good night, Rusty. Good night, Hazel." She walked to her room. Biscuit followed. The door clicked shut. Rusty stood in the kitchen. He pulled out the paper. He read it again. Each word felt like a stone in his stomach. The next morning, Mrs. Alvarez did not give him a discount on his coffee. She pulled his cup away before he could take it. "Mr. Malone," she said, and her voice was cold. "What's wrong?" he asked. She slid a newspaper across the counter. The headline was bold. Black, it screamed up at him. "Biker grandpa fights for granddaughter, but his club has blood on its hands." Rusty stared at the words. Below them was a photo. Him, standing in front of his Harley, wearing his leather vest. The photo was old. 10 years old. But the leather, the patches, it all looked the same. He read the article. It painted him as a criminal, a thug, a monster. It mentioned the bar fight. It mentioned the prison sentence. It called him an unfit guardian. It said Hazel would be better off anywhere but with him. The diner had gone quiet. He looked up. The old ladies at the corner booth looked away. Mr. Chen at the counter stared into his tea. No one met his eyes. Rusty put the newspaper down. He pushed his cup toward Mrs. Alvarez. "Thank you," he said. "I'll take it to go." He paid full price. He walked out into the morning sun. The paper was crumpled in his hand. His heart was heavy in his chest. By noon, the town had turned. The school kids who used to say hi to Hazel now crossed the street. Mrs. Pettibone pulled her curtains when Rusty drove past. Even the barber, old Mr. Chen, looked down when Rusty waved. Hazel felt it too. He saw it in her face. She stopped talking at dinner. She stopped humming. She just picked at her food and watched the door. "What's happening?" she asked. "Nothing," Rusty said. "Don't lie to me," she said. Soft, quiet. Everyone's looking at us, like we're dirty. Rusty set down his fork. He opened his mouth. But the phone rang before he could speak. He answered it. It was Deputy Maya. "Rusty," she said. Her voice was tight. "The judge has ordered a new hearing. They're placing Hazel in a group home pending the outcome." Rusty gripped the phone. "When?" "They're sending a transport van. It's already on its way. Rusty looked at Hazel. She was watching him. Her eyes were wide. Scared. "Thank you, Maya," he said. "I'll be ready." He hung up. "Who was that?" Hazel asked. Rusty walked to her. He knelt down in front of her. He took her hands. They were small. "Cold, Hazel," he said. "There's something I have to tell you." Hazel began to pack Biscuit's leash. The van sat in the driveway like a dark animal waiting to eat. 2 officers walked up the porch steps, a man and a woman. Their faces were flat. Practiced, they had done this before. "Miss Malone," the woman said. "We're here for Hazel Miller." Rusty stood in the doorway. He felt small, smaller than he had ever felt. His hands hung at his sides. "Heavy, useless, she hasn't done anything wrong," he said. His voice cracked. "Court order," the man said. He held up a paper. "We're just following orders." Hazel appeared behind Rusty. She had Biscuit's leash in her hand. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wet. "Rusty?" she whispered. "Stay behind me," he said. The woman officer stepped forward. "Hazel, come with us. It'll be okay." "No," Hazel said. "I want to stay here." The man officer reached past Rusty. His hand closed around Hazel's arm. Gentle, but firm. "Let go," Hazel said. "Let go." Her voice rose. Sharp, desperate. "Rusty, Rusty." Rusty stepped forward, his fist clenched. Every instinct in his body screamed to fight. But the woman officer held up her hand. "Don't," she said. "Please, don't make this worse." Rusty froze. His jaw locked. His eyes burned. Biscuit lunged. She barked loud. Fierce, her teeth bared. Rusty grabbed her collar, held her tight. She strained against his grip, whining, growling. Her legs worked the air. "Biscuit," Hazel cried. "Biscuit." The officers walked her down the steps. Hazel twisted, reached back. Her fingers stretched toward him, toward the dog. "Please," she sobbed. "Please don't take me. I'll be good. I'll be so good." Rusty held Biscuit with one hand. His other hand reached out. But she was too far. The van doors opened. The man officer guided Hazel inside. She looked back. Her face pressed against the window. Her hand pressed against the glass. Rusty. The door slid shut. The van rumbled to life. Rusty stood on the porch. Biscuit whined at his feet. The van pulled away. Down the driveway. Onto the road. Smaller, smaller, gone. Rusty sank to his knees. He did not feel the wood under him. He did not feel the sun on his back. He only felt the hole in his chest, the hollow place where his heart used to be. He stayed there a long time. Rusty, a voice. Soft, rough. He looked up. Jacob stood at the end of the porch. His collar was crooked. His face was gray. He had been there the whole time. Watching, silent Jacob, Rusty said, "I need you. I need help." Jacob stared at the empty road. His hands shook. His eyes were far away. "I can't," Jacob said. His voice was thin. "I can't do this." "Jacob, I'm sorry." Jacob turned. He walked away, down the steps, toward his truck. His steps were unsteady. "Wrong, Jacob," Rusty called. But Jacob did not turn back. His truck started. It pulled away. It went the other way, away from the house, away from the town, away from everything. Rusty sat in the silence. That night, the house was a tomb. Rusty did not turn on the lights. He walked through the dark, past the kitchen, past the living room, to Hazel's door. He opened it. The room was small, painted yellow. Her bed was made. The blue ribbon sat on her pillow. She had not hung it yet. He picked it up. The ribbon was soft. It smelled like her. On the nightstand lay a photo. Biscuit, a young golden retriever, sitting in grass, tongue out. Happy, Rusty held the photo. His thumb traced the edge. He sat on her bed. The springs creaked. He stared at the wall. The empty wall, where she wanted to hang her ribbon. Biscuit padded into the room. She nudged his hand. She whined. She looked at the door. "Waiting, she's not coming back tonight," Rusty said. Biscuit lay down, her head on his boot, her tail still. Quiet. The moon came through the window. Pale, cold, it lit the yellow walls, the empty bed, the photo in his hands. Rusty looked down at Biscuit. The dog's eyes were wet. "Animals feel things too." "They do. I can't do this alone." The words came out small. Broken, Biscuit lifted her head. She licked his hand. Rusty closed his eyes. The ribbon pressed against his chest. The photo of Biscuit grew damp in his fingers. He sat there, in the dark, in the quiet. Alone, the days blurred together after that. Rusty stopped eating. Not on purpose, he just forgot. Food sat in the fridge. Sandwiches went stale. The coffee maker stayed cold. He stopped shaving. His beard grew wild. Gray, tangled, his eyes sank into dark hollows. He wore the same shirt for a week. The cabin fell apart around him. Dishes piled in the sink. Dust gathered on the windowsills. Mail stacked up on the counter. He did not open any of it. He sat. That was all. He sat on the porch with Biscuit at his feet, or he sat in Hazel's room, holding her ribbon, staring at the yellow walls. She was still in the group home, 2 towns over. He visited every day, sat across from her at a plastic table. They did not say much. What was there to say? "I'm working on it," he told her, but his voice sounded empty. Even to him. Hazel nodded. She looked smaller every time. Her shoulders curved. Her eyes stayed down. "It's okay, Rusty," she said. "It's not your fault." But it was. He knew it was. The Club brothers came first. Tiny, Crazy Mike, Old Frank, they knocked on his door, banged with their fists. "Rusty, open up." Rusty did not answer. He sat in the dark. Biscuit whined at the door. "Wanted to see them." "Go away," Rusty said. His voice was flat. Dead. The knocking stopped. Then footsteps. Then the sound of a truck driving away. They came back the next day, and the next. Each time, he did not answer. Each time, they left. One evening, they left a sack of groceries on the porch. Rusty found it the next morning. Bread, eggs, bacon, a 6-pack of his favorite beer. The eggs went bad. The bread grew mold. He did not touch any of it. The night it happened was quiet. Rusty sat on the edge of his bed. The room was dark. The moon was thin, a sliver of silver through the blinds. In his hand, he held his pistol. It was old, heavy, a piece of his past. He had not held it in years, not since Jenny died. He looked at it. The metal caught the moonlight. Cold, smooth, his mind wandered. To the empty road. To the van that took Hazel away. To Jacob's truck disappearing over the hill. To every door that had ever closed on him. He thought about Jenny. How her eyes had the same gray as Hazel's. How she used to laugh, loud, bright. Then he thought about her at the end. Pale still, a needle on the floor. "Maybe it's just easier," he whispered. "Maybe they're all better off." The words hung in the air. Ugly, heavy, Biscuit padded into the room. She nudged his hand. Her nose was soft. Warm, Rusty looked down at her. She pushed her head under his palm. His fingers found her fur. She whined. Her tail wagged once, twice, slow. Then Biscuit did something she had never done before. She climbed onto the bed, all her weight. She pulled herself up. She crawled over his legs. She lay her head on his chest, right over his heart. Rusty froze. Biscuit looked at him. Her eyes were brown and deep. They held no judgment, no anger, just love. And in that moment, another pair of eyes flashed in his mind. Gray eyes. Hazel's eyes, looking back at him through a van window, reaching for him, trusting him. "I'll be so good," she had sobbed. "Please," Rusty's hand began to shake. He thought about what she would see if he did this, if he gave up, if he let the dark swallow him whole. She would be alone, truly alone. The pistol grew heavy in his hand, heavy and wrong. Biscuit nudged his chin. She licked his jaw. She made a soft sound, almost a cry. Rusty closed his eyes, and he put the gun away. He slid it back into the drawer. He pushed the drawer shut. He let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Biscuit stayed on his chest. Her warmth seeped through his shirt. "You're a good dog," he whispered. "You're a good girl." He lay there for a long time, his hand in her fur, her head on his heart. In the morning, Rusty stood in the bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror. The man staring back was a stranger. Hollow cheeks, wild hair, dull eyes. He picked up the razor. It took 20 minutes to shave. His hands were unsteady. But he did it. He showered. He put on clean clothes. He drank a glass of water. Then he picked up his phone. His thumb hovered over the screen. The name read Mac, club president. A voice he had known for 30 years. He pressed call. It rang once. "Twice, Rusty?" Mac's voice. Gruff, worried. "Yeah," Rusty said. His throat was tight. "Mac, I need help." A pause. "Say that again. I need help. I can't do this alone." Another pause. Then Mac's voice came back. "Softer, we're already on our way, brother." Rusty hung up. He sat on the porch steps. Biscuit curled beside him. Within the hour, headlights came down the dirt road. Trucks, bikes, brothers, they poured out of their vehicles. Mac in front, his face hard, his eyes soft. Rusty stood up. He did not say anything. He did not have to. Mac pulled him into a hug. Hard, quick then, broke it. "All right," Mac said. "Let's get to work." The brothers moved past him, into the cabin. They opened the windows. They washed the dishes. They swept the floors. One of them started cooking. The smell of bacon filled the air. Rusty watched them. His chest felt tight, but it was not from pain. It was something else. Something that felt a little like hope. The brothers did not stop with the dishes. Mac drove back to town and returned with buckets of yellow paint. The same shade Rusty had used for Hazel's room. He carried them up the porch steps with a grunt. "Figured we'd fix the fence next," Mac said. "Then the chicken coop. Then whatever else needs doing." Rusty stared at the paint cans. "You don't have to do this." "Yeah, we do," Tiny said. He was already pulling off his leather vest. "You've been there for us 100 times. Now it's our turn." They worked all day. Crazy Mike patched a hole in the roof. Old Frank fixed the loose railing on the porch. Tiny started sanding the wood around the front door, and somewhere in the middle of it, Rusty picked up a brush. He dipped it in paint. He started on the fence. It felt good to do something with his hands. That evening, Mac pushed a stack of paper across the table. "We're writing letters," he said. "Every brother, every friend, telling the court about you." Rusty blinked. "What do I write?" "Just the truth. The things nobody sees." So Rusty sat down. He thought about the years, the quiet moments, the times he had stopped to help a stranded motorist, the money he had slipped to a single mother at the grocery store, the nights he had sat with old man Grimes when his wife passed. He wrote until his hand cramped. The next morning, Deputy Maya showed up. She carried a clipboard. "I started a petition," she said. "Over 200 signatures already." The diner ladies are passing it around town. As if on cue, a station wagon pulled up. 3 women from the Rusty Spoon got out. One held a casserole dish, another carried a pie. "Figured you needed a hot meal," the first woman said. "We heard about the girl. We heard about you." Rusty's throat tightened. "Thank you." They set the food on the counter. They looked at the yellow paint on his hands. They did not say much more. They did not have to. That night his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. But Rusty answered anyway. "It's me," said a voice. Cracked, tired Jacob. Rusty's grip on the phone tightened. "Where are you?" "A motel. Just outside town. I've been hiding. I've been drinking. A long pause, but I'm clean again. I got out of the ditch. I crawled out." Rusty closed his eyes. He thought of Biscuit on his chest, of the gun in the drawer, of the warmth that pulled him back. "Me too," he said softly. "I'm coming home," Jacob said. "I'm going to testify. For Hazel. For you. If you'll have me." Rusty let out a breath. "I'll pick you up in the morning." They met at the church. It was a small building, white clapboard. A single wooden cross on the roof. The doors were unlocked. Rusty walked in first. Jacob followed. The pews were empty. The light was soft through stained glass. Dust floated in the stillness. They sat in the front row, side by side, 2 old bikers, one in a leather vest, one in a rumpled suit. Jacob put his head in his hands. "I was so scared," he whispered. "I thought I'd mess it all up again." Rusty did not know what to say. So he just sat there, quiet. Then he put his hand on Jacob's shoulder. "Let's pray," Rusty said. Jacob looked up. Surprised, then he nodded. They bowed their heads. No words at first, just silence. Finally, Rusty spoke. "God, if you're listening, help us be the men she needs us to be. Help us get her home." Jacob's voice joined his. Soft, broken, and help me stay on my feet. For her. "Please." They lifted their heads. The light had shifted. Golden, warm, the church doors opened. Mac walked in. Then Tiny. Then Crazy Mike. Then Old Frank. More brothers followed. They filled the pews. Quiet, respectful, some bowed their heads. Some just sat. Then Deputy Maya came, holding her petition. Then the women from the diner. Then neighbors Rusty had never spoken to. The church filled with people, strangers and friends, all of them showing up. Rusty looked at the crowd. He looked at Jacob. He looked at the altar. And for the first time in a long time, he felt ready. The hearing was tomorrow. But tonight, they were not alone. The courthouse was packed. Every bench was full. People stood along the walls. The air was thick with heat and tension. Rusty sat at the front table. His leather vest was clean. His beard was trimmed. He wore a white shirt underneath, the best he owned. Beside him sat his lawyer, a young woman named Miss Tran. She had taken his case for free. She believed in him. That still surprised Rusty. The prosecutor stood first. She was sharp. Stern, she pointed at Rusty like he was a danger. "This man belongs to a motorcycle gang," she said. "He has a criminal record. He was in a violent bar fight 20 years ago. He is not fit to raise a child." The courtroom murmured. Some people nodded. Rusty's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, to shout. But Miss Tran put a hand on his arm. "Let her talk," she whispered. "Then we talk." The prosecutor went on. She talked about the club, about the reputation, about the danger. But Rusty did not feel dangerous. He felt tired. He felt scared. Then it was their turn. Miss Tran stood up. She was calm. She was steady. "The court has heard about what Mr. Malone is," she said. "Now let me show you who he is." She called the first witness, a veteran named Sergeant Davis. He was old. He walked with a cane. He wore his medals on his jacket. "Miss Malone trained my therapy dog," he said. "He did it for free. He came to my house every week for 3 months. He never missed a visit. He never asked for anything." The judge listened. He took notes. Next came the clinic nurse, the one who had helped Hazel that terrible night. "I've known Jack Malone for 20 years, she said. "He has brought in stray animals. He has paid for medicine he could not afford. He sat with a dying man once, held his hand, stayed until the end." Rusty looked down at the table. His eyes burned. Then came the diner ladies. One by one. They talked about the times Rusty had fixed their cars, their roofs, their broken heaters. They talked about the money he left on the counter when he knew a family was struggling. The prosecutor looked uncomfortable. But the biggest moment came when Jacob walked to the stand. He wore a clean suit. His hair was combed. He carried a Bible, not to show off, just to hold. "Jacob Miller," Miss Tron said. "You are Hazel's biological father. Is that correct?" "Yes," Jacob said. His voice was quiet, but clear. "And you were once a member of a motorcycle club. Just like Mr. Malone, is that also correct?" "Yes, can you tell the court about your past?" Jacob took a breath. "I was angry. I was lost. I did things I am not proud of. I was in a fight with Rusty Malone. We almost killed each other." The courtroom went still. "But that was 20 years ago," Jacob said. "We were different men then." He looked at Rusty. There was no hatred in his eyes, only peace. "Rusty Malone is the man who saved my daughter's life. He is the man who cut her free from that fence. He is the man who fought for her. And he is the man who helped me get sober." The prosecutor objected. The judge waved her off. "Go on," the judge said. "I relapsed," Jacob said. "I fell hard. I hid in a motel. I drank. I wanted to give up." He paused. "But Rusty Malone called me back. He told me he believed in me. He told me Hazel needed me. And I crawled out of the ditch because of him." A woman in the audience wiped her eyes. Jacob looked at the judge. "I know what people see when they look at him. A biker, a thug. But I see a man who saved my daughter, a man who saved me. If you give him custody, you are giving Hazel a good home. I know it. I feel it." The judge nodded slowly. Ms. Tran stood again. "The court would like to hear from Hazel now." There was a rustle in the crowd. The door opened. Hazel walked in. She wore a simple dress. Blue, her hair was brushed. She looked nervous, but her chin was up. She walked to a small chair near the judge. She sat down. She folded her hands. The judge leaned forward. "Hazel, you do not have to speak if you do not want to, but if you have something to say, I would like to hear it." Hazel looked at Rusty. He gave her a small nod. She turned back to the judge. Her voice was soft, but clear. "I just want a dog that sleeps in my bed," she said. The courtroom was silent, "and I want Rusty to be my grandfather. He didn't hurt me. He saved me." The judge's eyes glistened. He took off his glasses. He rubbed his face. He took a long pause. The room waited. The judge put his glasses back on. He looked at the papers on his desk. He looked at Hazel. Then he looked at Rusty. "Jack Malone," he said, "you have a past. That is true. You have a record. That is also true." He paused. "But I have heard from a dozen people today. Not one of them spoke about who you were. They spoke about who you are." He set down his pen. "The law asks me to decide what is best for this child. Not what is easy. Not what is popular. What is best." Rusty held his breath. The judge looked at Hazel. You said you just want a dog that sleeps in your bed. That is a simple wish. Every child should have a simple wish. He turned back to Rusty. Mr. Malone, I am granting you permanent legal guardianship of Hazel Miller. For a moment, no one moved. Then the courtroom erupted. People stood up. They clapped. They cheered. The diner ladies were crying. Sergeant Davis was smiling. Deputy Maya let out a breath she had been holding for weeks. Rusty felt his legs shake. He stood up slowly. He did not know what to do with his hands. The prosecutor walked over to him. She extended her hand. I was wrong about you, she said. I am glad I was. Rusty shook her hand. He could not find words. He just nodded. Then he heard footsteps. Hazel was running. She crossed the courtroom floor. Her dress flew behind her. She did not stop until she crashed into Rusty's chest. He wrapped his arms around her. She was small. She was light. She was everything. Thank you, she whispered into his vest. Thank you, Grandpa. Grandpa, the word hit him like a wave. He had not been called that in years. He had never thought he would hear it again. He held her tighter. I got you, kid, he said. His voice cracked. I got you. Jacob walked over. He stood beside them. He did not interrupt. He just placed a hand on Rusty's shoulder. Rusty looked at him. Jacob's eyes were wet. Thank you, Jacob said. For everything. Rusty pulled him in. The three of them stood there. A biker. A pastor. A girl. Arms around each other. Somewhere near the back of the courtroom, a dog barked. It was Biscuit. Deputy Maya had brought her. She held the leash. The golden retriever was wagging her tail so hard her whole body shook. Hazel laughed. It was the brightest sound Rusty had ever heard. Biscuit, she yelled. The dog barked again. She pulled toward Hazel. Hazel broke away from the hug. She ran to Biscuit. She knelt down. The dog licked her face. Hazel giggled and wrapped her arms around the golden fur. Rusty watched. His heart felt too big for his chest. Jacob stood beside him. She is going to be okay, Jacob said. Rusty nodded. Yeah, she is. He looked around the courtroom. People were still clapping. The judge was smiling. Ms. Tran was packing her briefcase with a grin on her face. Rusty walked over to her. Thank you, he said. I can never repay you. Miss Tran shook her head. You already did. You gave that girl a chance. That is enough. They walked out together. Outside, the sun was bright. The sky was blue. It was the kind of day that made you believe in good things. And there, lined up on the courthouse steps, stood the Club brothers. They were all there. Big Mike, Danny Boy, Red, Old Tom. Some of them had ridden all night to be here. They were wearing their cuts, their leather vests, their boots. And in their hands they held flowers. Not expensive flowers, just simple ones. Daisies, sunflowers, wildflowers they had picked on the side of the road. Big Mike stepped forward. He was the biggest of all of them. 6'5", tattooed, scary-looking. He bent down to Hazel. Hey, kid, he said, we brought you these. Hazel looked at him. She did not flinch. She did not look scared. She smiled. Thank you, she said. She took the flowers. She smelled them. They're pretty, she said. Big Mike grinned. It was the softest face he had ever made. Rusty watched his brothers, his family, his people. He reached behind him. He pulled off his leather vest. He held it in his hands. There was a new patch on the back, sewn right below the club patch. It was gold thread. Simple letters. Hazel's grandpa. Danny Boy had sewn it on last night. He was good with a needle. Rusty put the vest on. He shrugged it into place. The leather was warm. The weight felt right. Hazel looked at him. She read the patch. Her eyes got big. She did not say anything, she just smiled. Then she reached out. She took his hand. Her hand was small, his hand was big. They fit together perfectly. Rusty looked up at the sky. He thought about Jenny. He thought about all the years he had wasted, all the time he had lost. But then Hazel squeezed his hand. And he knew. The past was gone. The future was now. He looked at his brothers. He looked at Jacob. He looked at Biscuit, who was sniffing the flowers. And then he looked at Hazel. "Come on, kid," he said. "Let's go home." The truck rumbled down the gravel road. Hazel sat in the middle, her shoulder pressed against Rusty's arm. Biscuit stuck her head out the window, tongue flapping in the wind. Jacob rode in the back seat, his hand resting on the door. The cabin came into view. It was small. It was plain. But to Hazel, it looked like a castle. Rusty parked the truck. He killed the engine. For a moment, nobody moved. "Ready?" he asked. Hazel nodded. They got out. The front door creaked when Rusty opened it. Sunlight spilled across the wooden floor. Dust danced in the air. Hazel stepped inside. She looked around. The old couch, the fireplace, the kitchen table with 3 chairs, and there at the end of the hallway was her door, painted bright yellow. She walked toward it. She pushed it open. The room was small, but it was hers. The walls were yellow, just like Rusty had promised. A bed sat against the wall with a soft blue blanket. Dog toys were scattered on the floor. A red ball, a rope toy, a squeaky chicken, and on the windowsill a framed picture of Jenny. Hazel picked it up. She looked at the woman in the photo. Same eyes, same smile. She was beautiful, Hazel said softly. Rusty stood in the doorway. He swallowed hard. "She was," he said, "and she would have loved you. She would have loved you so much." Hazel set the picture down. She turned around. She smiled. "I love my room," she said. Rusty felt his chest tighten. "Good, I painted it myself." "I can tell," Hazel said. "There's a spot you missed." Rusty looked. There, near the corner, was a small white patch. "How do you always see everything?" he asked. Hazel shrugged. "I pay attention." From the kitchen, Jacob's voice rang out. "Who wants pancakes?" Hazel laughed. "Pancakes? Yeah," Rusty said. "He makes them. They're terrible." They walked to the kitchen. Jacob stood at the stove. He wore a flower print apron over his collar. He was flipping pancakes with a spatula. "Terrible?" Jacob said. "I'll have you know these are art. They're the color of a burnt tire," Rusty said. Hazel giggled. It was a real giggle, bright and free. They sat down at the table. Jacob slid pancakes onto their plates. They were black on the edges, soft in the middle. Some were shaped like impossible blobs. Hazel picked up her fork. She cut a piece. She put it in her mouth. She chewed. She swallowed. "It's good," she said. Rusty looked at her. "You're lying." "Maybe," Hazel said, "but it's sweet that you're trying." Jacob laughed. It was a deep, warm laugh. He sat down with his own plate. "This family runs on burned pancakes," he said. Rusty shook his head. But he was smiling. He could not stop smiling. They ate. They passed the syrup. They told stories. Jacob talked about the goats at his church. Hazel talked about a dog she once trained that could open doors. Rusty talked about a motorcycle he rebuilt from spare parts. It was not a perfect dinner. The pancakes were awful. The syrup was sticky. The chairs wobbled. But it was perfect. After dinner, Hazel washed the dishes. Rusty dried them. Jacob played soft music on his guitar. When the dishes were done, Hazel yawned. "Bedtime," Rusty said. "I'm not tired," Hazel said. You yawned. That was a breathing exercise. Rusty raised an eyebrow. Hazel sighed. She walked to her room. At the door, she paused. Biscuit trotted in after her. The dog circled the bed. She sniffed the blanket. Then she jumped up. She curled into a golden ball at the foot of the bed. Hazel climbed in. She pulled the blue blanket to her chin. She reached out. She wrapped her arms around Biscuit. The dog let out a soft, happy sigh. Rusty stood in the doorway. He watched them. "Good night, kid," he said. "Good night, Grandpa." He clicked off the light. He left the door open a crack. He walked outside. The night air was cool. The moon was bright. He walked past the cabin to the old fence line. There it was, the barbed wire, the wooden posts, the place where it all began. He remembered Hazel's pale face, her torn clothes, her scratched hands. He touched one of the posts. The wire was still there. Sharp, cold, he looked at it for a long time. Then he heard soft footsteps behind him. Hazel stood there. She was wearing oversized socks. Her hair was messy. Biscuit sat by her side. "You should be in bed," Rusty said. "I saw you out here." She walked up beside him. She looked at the fence. "This is where you found me," she said. Yeah, she was quiet for a moment. "It's ugly," she said. Rusty nodded. "It is, but I was thinking, we could change that." She looked at him. "What do you mean?" Rusty looked at the fence. Then he looked at her. "We could tear down the wire," he said. "Build something new, something beautiful. Flowers, maybe a trellis, a garden." Hazel was quiet. Then she smiled. "Let's fix it together," she said. Rusty smiled back. In the moonlight, he looked younger. "Yeah," he said. Together, Biscuit wagged her tail. The next weekend came with a bright, clear sky, the kind of sky that made you believe anything could be fixed. Rusty stood at the fence with his toolbox at his feet. Hazel stood beside him. Jacob leaned against the truck, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. 3 club brothers rolled up on their bikes, engines growling then falling silent. Hank was big and bald. Tommy had a scar over his eyebrow. Marco wore a bandana and a grin that never quit. Hank looked at the fence. "This the wire you found her on?" "Yeah," Rusty said. Hank nodded. He pulled on work gloves without another word. They worked together. Rusty showed Hazel how to grip the wire cutters. She snipped the barbed wire in careful sections. The wire fell to the ground with a tired clatter. Hazel picked up a piece. She held it in her palm. She looked at it for a long moment. "You okay?" Rusty asked. She nodded. "It can't hurt anyone anymore." "That's right. It can't." Tommy and Marco yanked the old posts from the ground. They were rotted. Weak, the ground where they stood was soft and dark. Hazel watched the sun hit the place where the fence used to be. She smiled a little. Jacob walked over. He carried the new posts over his shoulder. Fresh cedar. Clean, the smell was sweet and strong. Hazel helped him set them in the holes. Rusty mixed cement in a wheelbarrow. He showed Hazel how to pack it around the base of each post. "You want it snug," he said. "That's what holds it steady." "Like family," Hazel said. Rusty paused. He looked at her. "Yeah," he said softly, "like family." They built the trellis frame together. Rusty held the top beam while Hazel hammered it in place. The hammer was heavy, but she swung it with small, determined strokes. "Don't grip so tight," Rusty said. "Let the hammer do the work." She loosened her grip. She swung again. The nail sank clean into the wood. She looked up. Her eyes were bright. "Got it," she said. "Perfect." They painted the trellis white. Hazel dipped the brush and spread paint in long, smooth strokes. The white covered the raw wood like fresh snow. Jacob painted the lower beams. Hank did the rest. Marco stepped back. He tilted his head. "It's not a fence anymore," he said. "It's art." "It's a trellis," Hazel said. "It's the same thing," Marco said. "Art," they all laughed. The morning glory seeds came in a small paper packet. Rusty handed it to Hazel. "Plant them along the base," he said. "They climb. They wrap. By summer, the whole thing will be covered in blue flowers." Hazel knelt in the dirt. She dug small holes with her fingers. She dropped the seeds in. She covered them gently. "Not too deep," she said, repeating what Rusty had told her. "Just enough to keep them safe." She patted the soil. She moved to the next spot. The sun moved lower. The shadows grew longer. The club brothers packed up their tools. They said quick goodbyes. "We'll come see it when it blooms," Tommy said. "You better," Rusty said. Hank clapped Rusty on the shoulder. "Good work, brother." Then the bike started. They rumbled down the road and faded into the distance. Jacob walked to the truck. He gave Hazel a warm look. "I'll start dinner. You two finish up." He drove away. The truck got smaller and smaller until it was a dot on the horizon. Rusty and Hazel stood alone at the trellis. The white paint gleamed in the fading light. The sun hung low, painting the sky in oranges and pinks and soft purples. Hazel looked at the trellis. She looked at the freshly turned soil where the seeds slept. She looked at the place where her nightmare had once wrapped around her. "It's like the fence saved me back," she said. Her voice was quiet and full of wonder. "It held me that night. It didn't let me fall all the way. It gave you a chance to find me." Rusty put his arm around her shoulder. He pulled her close. She leaned into him. She was small and strong and a little bit dusty. "No," he said. Emotion cracked his voice. "You saved me. I was lost before you. I was just a man with a bike and a past. You gave me a reason to be good. You gave me a family. You saved me, Hazel. Don't ever forget that." A month passed like a quiet prayer. The morning glories opened with the sun. Blue and purple and soft pink, they wrapped around the white trellis like a living blanket. The old fence was gone. The new wood stood proud and clean. Rusty woke early. He made coffee. He looked out the window and saw the blooms. He smiled. He tapped on Hazel's door. "Come see." Hazel came out rubbing her eyes. Biscuit trotted behind her, tail wagging. Hazel stopped at the porch rail. She stared. "They bloomed," she whispered. "Sure did." They walked down the path together. Biscuit ran ahead, nose low, sniffing the ground. The morning air was cool and sweet. Dew sparkled on the grass. Hazel stood in front of the trellis. The flowers climbed every beam. They twisted and curled and reached for the sky. She touched one gently. It was soft as a whisper. "It's beautiful," she said. "All yours," Rusty said. "You planted them." She pulled out her phone. She snapped a photo, then another, then another. She crouched low. She stood high. She wanted to catch every angle. Biscuit sat beside her. Hazel snapped a photo of the dog with the flowers behind her. "Perfect," she said. Rusty carried the picnic basket down. A worn blanket, some sandwiches, lemonade in a mason jar. He spread the blanket on the grass near the trellis. "Hungry?" Hazel sat down. Biscuit settled beside her. She took a sandwich and bit into it. "Thank you. You don't gotta thank me. I want to." She looked at him. "For everything." Rusty sat down. He didn't know what to say. So he just ate his sandwich and watched the flowers sway in the breeze. Then they heard it. Footsteps on the road. A familiar, steady walk. Jacob came up the hill with his guitar slung over his back. He wore jeans and a simple shirt. No collar today, just a man with a song. "Mind if I join?" he asked. "Pull up a seat," Rusty said. Jacob sat cross-legged on the blanket. He tuned the guitar. The notes were soft and clean. He started to play. It was a gentle song. No words, just melody. It floated on the morning air like the scent of blossoms. Hazel closed her eyes. The music washed over her. Rusty leaned back on his elbows. He watched the clouds drift. He listened to the strings. For the first time in years, his chest felt light. Jacob played 3 songs. The third one had a little tune about the sun climbing over the hills. Hazel hummed along. Biscuit laid her head on Hazel's lap. "You play nice," Hazel said. "Thank you, it helps me think. What do you think about?" Jacob looked at her. His eyes were soft. "About how lucky I am to be here. With you." Hazel reached over and squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. A truck rumbled by on the road. It slowed. A woman in the passenger seat waved. It was Marge from the diner. She smiled wide and waved again. Rusty waved back. Another car passed. An older man in a truck hat. He raised his hand in a friendly greeting. He didn't stop. He didn't need to. Word had gotten out. The community knew what happened. They knew the Millers had been cruel. They knew Rusty had saved Hazel. They knew he was not the man his past said he was. They passed by. They waved. They smiled. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. The whole town was forgiving him without a single word. Hazel noticed. She looked at Rusty. "Everyone's waving today." "Yeah," he said soft. "They are." "Because of me?" Rusty set down his sandwich. He looked at her with his full attention. "Because you showed them who I really am. You showed them I could love something. You made them see me different." Hazel smiled. She picked up a leaf and twirled it between her fingers. The sun climbed higher. The shadows shrank. Jacob packed up his guitar. He stood and stretched. "I should head back," he said. "Bible study tonight." Hazel stood and hugged him. He held her close. "See you Sunday?" she asked. "Every Sunday," he said. He walked down the road, guitar swinging at his side. He turned once and waved. Hazel waved back. Rusty cleaned up the picnic. Hazel helped fold the blanket. Biscuit sniffed the grass for crumbs. The trellis stood tall and proud, morning glories smiling in the light. They walked back to the cabin. The day slipped by in easy contentment. That night, Hazel brushed her teeth and put on her pajamas. She climbed into bed. Biscuit jumped up and curled at her feet. Hazel giggled. "You sleep on my bed," she said. "You actually sleep on my bed." Biscuit licked her toes. Hazel pulled the covers up. She tucked her hand under her cheek. "Good night, Biscuit," Biscuit sighed. She closed her eyes. Hazel did too. Rusty stood in the doorway. Moonlight spilled through the window. It lit the golden dog. It lit the sleeping girl. It lit the peace on her face. He watched them for a long moment. Then he pulled the door almost closed. He walked to the porch. He sat on the steps. The night was quiet. The stars came out one by one. They filled the sky like scattered seeds. He breathed in. He breathed out. The air was cool and clean. Somewhere down the road, the morning glories rested in the dark, waiting for the dawn. Rusty looked up at the stars. He thought about Jenny. He thought about Hazel. He thought about the fence that had become a trellis. He thought about how he had been lost. And how he had been found. He didn't have to say anything. He just sat there, his hands loose on his knees, his chest calm, his heart full. For the first time in his life, Jack Rusty Malone was at peace. A year had passed, and the morning glories had bloomed again. Blue and purple and soft pink, they climbed the trellis like they owned the sky. The old fence was a distant memory. All that remained was the wood, the flowers, and the story they told. Rusty stood in the living room, adjusting his collar. It was a strange thing, wearing a collared shirt. He tugged at it, uncomfortable. The leather vest he usually wore sat on the chair by the door. He thought about putting it on. Then he thought about Hazel. He left the vest there and buttoned his shirt all the way. "Are you ready?" Hazel asked. She stood in the hallway, wearing a flower dress, yellow with little white daisies. Her hair was brushed and neat. She had clipped a small barrette in it, shaped like a honeybee. "That's a nice dress," Rusty said. "I figured today was special." "It is." Biscuit padded out from the bedroom. The golden dog wore a blue bandana around her neck. She wagged her tail and nudged Hazel's hand. "Biscuit wanted to come too," Hazel said. "Course she does." They walked outside together. The sheriff's car was waiting in the driveway. Deputy Maya leaned against it, holding 2 cups of coffee. She smiled and handed one to Rusty. "You look sharp," she said. "Feel like a penguin." "Good. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. It means you're doing something important." Rusty took the coffee. He sipped it. It was hot and strong. He felt a little steadier. The courthouse was a brick building with big white columns. It stood at the center of town, watching over the streets like a quiet guardian. When they walked through the doors, the air turned cool and serious. The courtroom was small. Wooden benches filled the back. The front had a high desk where the judge would sit. There was a flag in the corner. Hazel tugged at Rusty's sleeve. "I'm nervous," she whispered. "Me too. Really? Really, but I got you. And you got me." She nodded. She took a deep breath. Biscuit sat quietly by her side. Jacob was already there. He sat in the front row, holding a well-worn Bible. His hair was grayer than before. His hands were steady. He looked up as they entered and gave them a small, warm smile. Deputy Maya led them to the front. They sat at a table. The bailiff called the court to order. Everyone stood. The judge came in through a side door. Judge Hendricks was a woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She had seen many cases over the years. She had seen children taken from bad homes. She had seen families torn apart. She loved her job because she also got to see families put back together. She looked at the papers in front of her. Then she looked up at Rusty and Hazel. "This is a petition for full adoption," she said. "Mr. Malone, you have had legal guardianship of Hazel for over a year. You have provided her with a stable home. You have enrolled her in school. You have supported her emotionally. And you have kept her safe." Rusty nodded. His hands were clammy. He wiped them on his pants. "Miss Hazel, would you like to say anything?" Hazel stood slowly. She looked at the judge. Then she looked at Rusty. Then she looked at Biscuit. "I used to think family meant people who shared your blood," she said. "But then I learned that family is who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when you're hard to love." Rusty showed up. He stayed. "He loves me." Her voice shook a little, but she kept going. "I want him to be my dad. For real, on paper. So no one can ever take me away from him again." The room was silent. Somewhere in the back, a woman sniffled. It was Marge from the diner. She had come to watch. Judge Hendricks looked at the papers. She took off her glasses and wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. Mr. Malone, do you understand what you are taking on? This is a lifelong commitment. You will be responsible for Hazel's health, education, and well-being until she turns 18. And believe me, being a parent does not end at 18. It is a tie that binds forever. I understand, Rusty said. His voice was rough. I've never been more sure of anything in my whole life. The judge nodded. She stamped the papers. The sound was sharp and final and wonderful. Then it is my great pleasure to officially and legally declare Hazel Malone the daughter of Jack Malone. Hazel gasped. She turned to Rusty. Her eyes were wide and wet. Did she just say Malone? She did. Like Hazel Malone? Like Hazel Malone. Hazel launched herself into Rusty's arms. She hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. He hugged her back. Biscuit barked and jumped up, licking both their faces. The courtroom applauded. Jacob clapped the loudest of all. His face was bright with joy. Judge Hendricks smiled. Congratulations, Mr. Malone, and congratulations, Hazel, you two are a family now. They walked out of the courthouse together. Hazel held Rusty's hand like she would never let go. Biscuit trotted ahead, tail wagging. Do you want something to eat? Rusty asked. Ice cream, Hazel said. In the morning? Especially in the morning. Rusty laughed. It was a full, warm laugh that came from his chest. Hazel heard it and smiled even wider. They went to Marge's diner. It was a small place with red vinyl booths and a counter lined with swiveling stools. A big menu hung on the wall, written in chalk. There was a jar of peppermint candies by the register. Marge greeted them at the door. She had a paper hat on her head and a smile that could light a city. Well, she said, if it isn't a brand new family. Morning, Marge, Rusty said. Morning? That's not morning. That's a celebration. I got a booth saved for you. She led them to the corner booth, the one with the best view of the street. They slid in. Biscuit curled up under the table. Jacob joined them. Deputy Maya came too. Marge brought a pitcher of lemonade. She brought 4 tall glasses. She brought a bowl of water for Biscuit. Then she brought ice cream. 3 scoops of vanilla with chocolate sauce for Hazel. A chocolate shake for Rusty. A strawberry sundae for Jacob. A plain black coffee for Maya. They raised their glasses and clinked them together. To Hazel, Rusty said. To family. To family, everyone said. Hazel took a big bite of her ice cream. It was cold and sweet and perfect. She looked around the table. She looked at Jacob, quiet and kind. She looked at Maya, steady and fair. She looked at Rusty, strong and true. She looked down at Biscuit, patient and loyal. She had a family. Not by blood, but by love. And that was even better. When the ice cream was finished, they walked outside. The sun was high and warm. The streets were quiet. Hazel said goodbye to Jacob and Maya. See you Sunday, she said. Every Sunday, Jacob promised. Rusty and Hazel walked home together. Biscuit led the way, her tongue out, her tail wagging. The road was long and dusty. The trees arched overhead, making a green tunnel of shade. They came to the old property, the one that used to have a fence with barbed wire. Now it had a trellis, white and clean, wrapped in morning glories. The flowers were open and bright, greeting the sun. Rusty stopped. He looked at the trellis. He remembered the day he had found Hazel. The torn clothes, the quiet whimper, the fear in her eyes. He remembered cutting the wire. He remembered carrying her to the clinic. He remembered everything that came after. The pain, the healing, the anger, the forgiveness. It's beautiful, Hazel said. Sure is. She let go of his hand. She walked to the trellis. Biscuit followed. Hazel touched a blue morning glory. It was soft as silk. Rusty walked over and stood beside her. He looked at the flowers. They reminded him of hope, of second chances, of all the things that could grow if you just let them. Hey, Hazel? Yeah? You know what this is? He gestured to the trellis, to the flowers, to the home down the road, to everything they had built together. This is what family is. Hazel looked at the trellis. She looked at Rusty. She looked at Biscuit, sitting by her feet. Then she shook her head. Nope, she said. This is what love is. Rusty blinked. He felt a warmth spread through his chest. His throat felt tight. Huh, he said. Family is just a word, Hazel said. It's what you do that matters. You saved me. You fed me. You gave me a bed and a dog and a home. You showed up in court today and you said I was yours. That's not family, Rusty. That's love. Family is just love that stayed. Rusty swallowed. He looked at her. The morning light caught her face. She was beautiful. She was his. You got away with words, kiddo, he said. I learned from the best. She walked over to him. She slipped her arms around his waist and hugged him tight. He wrapped his arms around her and held her close. Biscuit wagged her tail. She ran around them in a happy circle, barking softly. The morning glories swayed in the breeze. The sun climbed higher. The shadows grew shorter. Rusty looked over Hazel's shoulder at the trellis, at the flowers, at the proof that broken things could grow into something beautiful. He thought about Jenny. He hoped his daughter was watching. He hoped she knew her little girl was safe. He hoped she knew her little girl was loved. Hazel pulled back. She smiled at him. Her eyes were bright and clear. Come on, Dad, she said. Let's go home. Rusty felt the word sink into his heart. Dad. She called him Dad. Yeah, he said. Let's go. They walked down the road together, hand in hand. Biscuit trotted ahead, golden in the sunlight, leading the way home. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.